Welcome to Star Trek Theory, where we look at ideas, theories, and speculation about all things Star Trek. And today we're looking at Discovery and clues from one of the short Trek episodes, called Calypso. This episode was both touching and interesting, with a lot of mystery to it. Here's a quick rundown of the story. A soldier called Kraft is drifting in an escape pod and floats into a nebula where it gets rescued by the Discovery ship. He wakes up to find the ship empty, except for an advanced AI computer that is running things, and she nurses him back to health. He finds himself stuck on the ship, unable to leave.
I understand that you want to go home, but I was ordered to maintain position. I have no choice, Kraft.
The Discovery computer, Zora, somehow falls in love with Kraft and creates a holographic version of herself so they can dance. But Kraft misses his family, and finally Zora agrees to let him go and gives him one of the Discovery shuttles. And here's where we get one of the most obvious Calypso clues in the name of the episode. Why call the episode Calypso? Calypso, in Greek myth, was a female spirit who lived on an island alone. She captured and detained Odysseus for 7 years in the Odyssey and tries to keep him as her husband. Eventually, Calypso realizes it is not her destiny to live with Odysseus forever, and that he longs to be with his own wife and family, so she lets him go out of love. Sound familiar? It's obviously where the story in the episode gets its inspiration from, and it's a nice touch by Michael Chabon. But back to the Star Trek universe, and Zora claims she's been waiting alone for 1,000 years.
How long you been out here, alone, waiting for the crew to return from wherever they went?
Almost 1,000 years.
So when does this episode take place? Well, let's dig into that and come up with a few theories using the clues from Calypso. The first 2 seasons of Discovery are set in the 2250s, which is just before Kirk and Spock of the original series. At the end of the second season, Discovery jumps through a time portal, already going 1,000 years into the future. So season 1 and 2, they're in the 2250s, but in season 3, they'll be in the 3250s. So when does the Calypso episode take place? And there's really 2 main theories where Discovery could be in Calypso. Number 1, the far, far future, which seems the most obvious based on where they are in season 3, and 1,000 years later into the 4250s. Or number 2, Calypso's still in the 3250s, which is the same future they find themselves in season 3. So let's start with the first theory, which also seems the most obvious. At the start of season 3, Discovery will supposedly already be 1,000 years further than when they started. They're sent to the future to protect the sphere data getting into the hands of the AI control.
To ensure the sphere data remains out of Leland's reach, Michael must remain in the future. Permanently.
So that would put the episode Calypso an even further 1,000 years out, taking place 2,000 years past Kirk and Spock's time. But what could it be doing there? So perhaps Control from season 2 survived in some form, and has lived on all this time. What if they realize all they've done is postpone Control from getting the sphere data, and with their arrival 1,000 years later, they need to hide Discovery in the Nebula and order it to stay there out of reach. So the ship is literally hiding. It waits in the Nebula for 1,000 years. A byproduct of this is that the ship's computer evolves, using the sphere data to become an AI itself. In fact, it could have been a deliberate choice by the crew to do this, to have Discovery evolve into a consciousness which would be caring and the opposite of control. Burnham could have instructed the ship to wait there in the Nebula and evolve, and then use the Red Angel suit to travel the 1,000 years into the future, which is why the ship is waiting for her to arrive. Once there, she can take the evolved ship back in time again and have an advanced AI Zora as an ally under Discovery from that point onwards. Since this puts the episode 2,000 years past the original series, it might explain the feeling that everything humanity did happened a really long time ago, and time travel could become a huge part of the show from this point onwards. And here's something which might back it up. The squid probe, which, if anyone remembers, came from the future and tried to kill them.
That probe came from the future and tried to kill us.
So maybe in the future, Control can't find Discovery because it's hiding. So it has to go back in time, which is the only place it can find it, and that's what the Squid Probe was. This theory is probably the safest of all of them, and builds on where they are already in Season 3, and what logical next steps could happen, but an obvious continuation to the story. The second theory is Calypso takes place in that same 1,000 years timeline they'll find themselves in Season 3. Until Season 3 comes out, we really haven't seen much of this time period, so anything's up for grabs. But there's one person who went along with Discovery who no one really expected to, and that's Georgiou.
I'm Taryn, by the way, from your mirror universe.
We saw at the end of Season 2 that Georgiou goes along with them into the future, and it seems that promised Section 31 series is kind of up in the air at this point without her involvement. Or is it? What if, at some point in Season 3, Georgiou takes the ship, either willingly or otherwise, and goes back in time again 1,000 years, back to the original starting point of the series. She then uses the ship for a while, and in her old age takes it to this nebula and leaves it there, instructing it not to move. Georgiou could have been the captain that ordered the ship to remain there 1,000 years. Discovery sits there waiting under orders until the time is right, and finally exits the nebula. The Discovery crew, who just saw Georgiou steal the ship and jump back in time, would be surprised to see a second Discovery flying towards them to rendezvous at the exact same time Georgiou left. For the crew, that time would be instantaneous, but for the ship, it's been waiting for this moment for 1,000 years on Georgiou's orders. The crew would get the ship back, and Zora would then become a new character on the show afterwards. Personally, this one sounds the most plausible. From a story logistics point of view, it's super elegant in that it can take only seconds and screen time for this to occur. Georgiou steals the ship and the crew will get it back instantly, but with a cool new evolved AI character being added to the show. It could also set up the Section 31 series very nicely, with Georgiou now having knowledge of the future, and maybe affecting Section 31's mandate about protecting the Federation from whatever threats they may find in Season 3 of Discovery.
But someone has to make sure nothing like Control ever happens again. Someone inside the gray areas.
It's Section 31.
So there's one important element to all of these ideas, and that's Zora herself. As a sentient being now, she doesn't need to follow the orders of a captain long since dead and whom she would know is not coming back. Therefore, Zora herself is a clue. She knows that she's needed somehow or in some way, and that there are very high stakes involved. So waiting in the nebula is the only thing she can do. Maybe she's protecting the sphere data, or she's just needed in the future. Either way, she refuses to leave the nebula, no matter what, it's that important. There's actually one more reason Zora and Discovery could be in the nebula, and that's self-preservation, keeping herself safe from something. And that's what we're going to look at in the next video, which could be a really interesting idea and could shine a new light on everything. But for this video, personally, my money's on Theory 2 and Georgiou taking the ship back and ordering it to remain there so he can meet back up with Discovery again in the future. It could be really interesting if Zora were added to the show as a main character, and would really put the Calypso episode into a new light. It could also actually give the Section 31 series a lot of ammo with all that future knowledge Georgiou could have. Special thanks to Ketwolski, who inspired this idea in our discussions while I was putting together this video. If you haven't already, definitely head over to his channel and subscribe. He does some great vids and awesome Trek content. So let me know what you think in the comments down below, and definitely subscribe now for more ideas, theories, and speculation on all things Star Trek. Thanks for watching, and Trek on.